Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's expert session with Royal Mayfair Golden Golf Club and St. Eugene Resort. My name is Stephen Knoop, the Managing Director of Tagmarshal. And we have a fantastic panel of expert guests today with Matt Johnson, Director of Golf at Royal Mayfair, Graeme Kreiner, the Director of Operations at Golden Golf Club, and Michael Pearson, Head Professional from St. Eugene Resort. Morning, guys. How are you keeping?
Excellent. Thank you.
Good, thanks.
Very well, thanks. Thanks for having us.
That's always a pleasure, guys. Rather than just diving into the webinar straight away and sort of going to Q&A side of things, I'm sure everyone would love to hear about your respective courses and your role at the clubs and your golf journey. Matt, would you mind getting the ball rolling?
Yeah, no problem. Director of golf at the Royal Mayfair. I've been here now. Just completed my 10th season. For those of you that don't know the Royal Mayfair, as you can see by that picture, it's a bit of an older picture, but that's the downtown club of Edmonton, private club. So we've been around for just over 100 years, and in that time we've hosted a few Canadian Opens and a very proud golf culture here at the Mayfair. We joined Tagmarshal at the beginning of the pandemic, kind of as a way to try it out, an excuse for physical distancing at the time and being able to monitor the golfers at the club, and it's just become a part of the fabric of the club ever since, and it's been a valuable tool in our toolbox for the staff to use to make sure the member and guest experience is on par. I'm the PGA of Alberta president, and I've been in the Alberta zone for close to 20 years now, 15 years. So 15 years as a head pro. So I'm glad that you guys picked the picture from about 10 years ago to represent me. Thank you, Stephen.
I think I've benefited from my old picture as well. They Matt, you're not the only one in the room. Graeme, Director of Operations at Golden Golf Club.
Yeah, you bet. Been at the Golden Golf Club since 2012, had 1 year away. We're a semi-private golf club located in the Rocky Mountains. We're about 2.5 hours from Calgary. Pretty somewhat secluded on Highway 1. Been a PGA member since 2002. Basically came from Northern Alberta, and then I worked my way into the BC Mountains. Golden Golf Club started as 9 holes in the mid-'80s and then moved to 18 in the mid-'90s. We joined Tagmarshal back in 2021, just looking for a solution for the classic, having marshals out there just being not quite as effective as we were hoping, and we found the solution to be very good thus far. This past year we had 27,671 rounds, so it's up about 31% since the pandemic. As far as the Golden Golf Club, a lot of people's favorite golf club. We've been twice voted the #1 hidden gem in the province. We've hosted a number of big events. Next year, actually, we're hosting the BC Men's Mid Amateur. We're just known as a small town golf club with big time golf. It's a great golf course. People really love it, and it's fair. It's right in front of you. No tricks. It's a matter of you just staying out of the trees and hitting good shots. I'm looking forward to today.
Thanks, Graeme. Much appreciated. Michael, Head Pro at St. Eugene Resort. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Hi there. Just finished my 5th year here, and we are a golf resort located just outside Cranbrook, BC. We have about 125 rooms in the hotel, a casino, a campground, a KOA campground as well. We have a small amount of members as well as local play, but the majority of our play are resort guests and from out of town. So we do have quite the variety and mix of players. Yeah, that's kind of it.
Fantastic. That's perfect, Mike. Now, for those of you that don't know, you guys are obviously very well versed in the system itself, and a few others on this educational webinar today. There are a few that it's been their first time introduction. So for their benefit, we're just going to give them a small introduction as to who we are as a company, and then I suppose the solution side of things. So we're currently working now with 500 golf courses worldwide, both in the daily fee resort and private space. as well as about 75 golf courses in Canada. And at this stage, tracked in excess of 30 million rounds of golf. So a lot of data and analytics that are helping golf courses run smarter operations. We also privileged to be working with the DP World Tour, the RNA for some of their events, and recently partnered with the PGA of Alberta and the PGA of British Columbia, as well as Alberta Golf using our system for their tournament golf in that space. Why courses are using the system, and essentially is to optimize that player or that member experience. And the way that operations and management teams are able to do that is the system's going to preemptively alert them when there are going to be flow and pace issues on course. So giving them the opportunity to rectify the issue before it becomes a problem. But most importantly now is that because it then becomes a data-driven conversation, an objective conversation for both the staff member and the golfer, and a better outcome for everyone involved. And we know that working with the USGA, that the highest indicators for a brilliant and poor round of golf are directly related to on-course conversations or interactions. So being able to make us objective and having a frictionless outcome is the best thing possible. How the technology itself works, well, we have our one device per playing group, and our cart install tags and our 8-inch screens. But essentially, regardless of which hardware you're looking at, groups, times, and locations are related to ranges or marshals. Some courses have ad hoc ranges and marshals, and essentially they would be given this own oversight from a tablet, computer, or phone, where when there is an issue on course, they would be alerted by a pop-up alert, text message, phone call, or email. And then they can basically look at what's happening on course. Matt, you've obviously been using the classic mobile tags for a couple of years now, and at St. Eugene Resort and Golden Golf Club, they would be using our cart install tags. But essentially from the back end, you guys would all be seeing the same thing, which is a bird's eye view of the golf course. The little square would be your ranger or marshal. You can trap your superintendent or your drinks cart on a warm summer's day. But most importantly, what everyone's seeing on course now are the circles or dots of the playing groups. And the way that color coordination works is green is on time, they can be left alone. Red 13 would be a member or guest that is slow but non-impacting the field because they aren't holding anyone up. And then your problematic groups would be your 17 or 6, your purple, because not only are these groups slow, but they're starting to impact the orange groups behind them. And they would then become your frustrated golfers in the next 10 to 15 minutes. So at this stage, the system would automatically generate a pop-up alert on screen, text message or email, which I spoke about earlier. And then that staff member could just log into their computer, tablet, or smartphone to see what's happening with this group. Do I need to go and talk to them? Graeme, I might ask you to jump in here for a second, right? So let's just say you had got an alert, you popped up on screen now, you saw group 17, and we had to tap on that icon. What are you currently looking at screen on there now, if you don't mind running through a bit of that information?
Yeah, first, obviously, see the icon kind of stares at you in the face, and then you can kind of look at what's going on for that group. One thing I am constantly looking at is the progress with respect to, like, did they just have a really bad hole? Maybe that's a hole on your golf course that's traditionally difficult. Or as you can see here, they got off to a good start, first 2 holes, and then they slowly started to get a little bit slower. And as you can see on the 5th hole, they really got slow. And then I've also gone to the next group, like 18, and just see, I believe it's, tag 18, and just see kind of how their day was. Maybe they were 4 holes very fast, and then they just caught up to this group. So they might be a very fast group. And then you just got to kind of do that analysis. The one nice thing with Tagmarshal is you can you can see each group's entire day. So you know more of a story. So when you do have to go out for those on-course interactions, often groups misremember what actually happened with respect to, we've been behind them since hole 2. And then you look at their progress and you see, no, well, if that's the case, then they've been playing really fast for 15 holes. So, or whatever the example might be, right? But just from the progress is really great. And then also you have the overall number as far as like how far behind pace they are right now at -6 minutes. So that's a big one to just show the group, like, you guys are currently 6 minutes behind. And there's no argument there when they see data in front of them.
And Matt, obviously looking at the players that you know who you're approaching, it's very useful to know who you're approaching on course. one, I suppose you might know them from a member standpoint. Can you maybe just talk us through how that works for you guys from an integration point of view and who you integrated with?
Yeah, I think good question. Everybody has, at a private club, everybody knows the groups that they have to watch for, or if they see a member and 3 guests come out, it's kind of highlighted. But typically the integration is quite easy. We use Jonas software for our T-sheet right now. And as soon as we load up Tagmarshal for the day, it has its own T-sheet. If we flip to the T-sheet, the Jonas names or our T-sheet on Jonas are automatically synced to the Tagmarshal software. So the only thing you really have to do is assign the tag number to the group. And it's just on a carabiner, we just put it in their rickshaw or in their power cart. Like Graeme says, when those purple dots appear, our staff will, we're a little bit, probably a bit more time. If it's 5 minutes from pace, we'll kind of watch that for a little bit. If it starts to get slower, closer to that 10-minute mark, we need to go out there and chat with the group. The staff knows who the group is, so they can kind of prepare themselves for it. But more importantly, they know who the groups are behind them, where they can have a chat with them as well. And then we might swing by tag number 13, who is off pace but not affecting anybody at the moment, and just let them know where they stand, and just to make sure that they keep up for the group behind them. So it's just a valuable tool, very simple to use is what I always say. Like, you just have to put a tag in a cart and then attach that number to the group. And you don't have to do that right away. You can do that throughout the day. Very simple for the staff to use. And again, this desktop sits in all of our computers or on our phones, wherever you may be.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. Mike, and obviously now when we're approaching this group on course, we're never going to call anyone slow. They're always out of position. How important is it now to have data to turn this conversation into an objective one when approaching a group?
Yeah, and before we had Tagmarshal, I think there was, the guests and golfers would have in their mind that maybe they were teed off late or had kind of a different idea of what maybe happened. But just now with the actual data and, exact time on everything, there's not really much kind of disputing it, because exactly, where they're at and when they teed off, and you have all that info. And I mean, like Graeme said too, I think you can kind of keep an eye on things too. Like, even if someone's only 3 or 5 minutes slow, maybe they just had a bad hole, and we've seen it where they actually then, catch back up to pace and everything's fine. And even a nice thing too about just knowing where the cart numbers, like where the carts are and who's in them. I mean, we've had it lots of times where someone in a group is running late and we need to run them out to the group, so you can actually see exactly where that group is, and so it makes it easier to kind of drop them off. Or maybe someone forgot a club and you need to run it out to them. All of that just is really nice to have.
Perfect. And after that conversation, then obviously the staff member can also leave a note on the system to say, look, they were very compliant, 4 stars. So, in a worst case scenario, if there was a bit of a hornet's nest and it was a 1 star and you did have to approach that group in the back nine, you'd know how to approach. And likewise, a good interaction, you would know that it's a very cooperative group if you have to speak to them later on the round. Now, obviously, so long as the system is running now, it's also automatically collecting data and analytics in the background. And this would be a snapshot of what one might be looking at for a day's play at the course. As I said, all those rounds automatically recorded, all their data and analytics. And a snapshot of a day's play might look something similar to what you're seeing on screen there now, where they've tracked 64 groups on the day. The data would break it down into 2 balls, 3 balls, and 4 balls. Tell you what your average round time of the day was in relation to the target time. But more importantly now, our system doesn't just measure average round time, because that doesn't always show you a full picture of what's happening on a golf course, and that you can have 4 balls that are playing quickly in the morning. And as that volume increases during the day, the course will sort of slow up, and those quicker rounds in the morning hide those slower rounds in the afternoon. So the system also, more importantly, measures what we call pace distribution or course flow. We would often sometimes consider flow more important than pace, and that golfers generally don't mind playing longer so long as they never wait. And it'll be telling you how many groups are under par time, on time in the green, and in the orange segment, 10 minutes over, which we would deem acceptable now in the management space. Mike, I know that you also take quite a bit of interest in seeing what's happening with the individual holes at the club and how they're playing. What have you sort of done in that space?
Yeah, and one of the things like on that is just we get the season end report, which is really nice to see the kind of big picture and throughout the season. And obviously it'll break it down time of day depending on when the groups start and month. Like, you know, we might have busier months and then for sure the hole by hole I find interesting. We can see, you know, where our slowest holes are, and some of the ones that we maybe think should be slower aren't actually that bad. So we've kind of adjusted those expected goal times for each hole over the last couple of years. And then I just recently worked with Peter to actually kind of fine tune some of the geofencing, the zoning for each hole to really just try to make it as accurate as possible for the times and the hole by hole times as well.
Perfect. And as well as seeing now the individual hole times and how they are performing at the course, we're then also able to collect each of the individual rounds played on the course that day with that same color coordination we spoke about earlier, where green is on time, red has been a slow but non-impacting the field, and orange being a delayer. And I suppose the benefit of that is if there is a problem on course, either in live play or in post-round, we can obviously dive into that information and actually seeing what's happened on course earlier via the players' track maps. Matt, do you guys ever dive into that post-round to see what's happened earlier on in the day's play?
Good question. What I'll do at the end of most days is I will just look at that bar graph that we saw before, and I will jump on to the ones that are in purple and see how far out of position they may have been. I'll contact our staff at the time and see if there was any communication with that group. And if it's an egregious pace of play infraction, and then I'll provide this data to the member via email typically, and just kind of just so you know, this has happened. I know it happens from time to time, but please don't let it happen again. But here is the data of your round, basically what you're seeing on the screen right there. And very positive feedback from the member. They really don't have anything to say but sorry, and I'll try better next time or whatnot, or thank you for the information. Takes any emotion out of that contact. So yeah, I use that day end review quite a bit, and hopefully we catch it before it goes purple. But you know, from time to time, I might have to have a chat. We might go out and talk to that group 2 or 3 times, and they're still just slow. So then it provides some analytics for me to talk to the group.
I suppose essentially too, you know, irrespective of whether a group is slow or quick now, you can at least manage it accordingly, you know, as in essentially, I know in your space, it's an insurance that all your members are going to have a great day on course. Graeme and Mike, I know you have the cart installed tags now. Can you maybe run us through a bit of your experience from the geofencing alert side of things and what you might be seeing on screen, or what notifications you get if a group has gone into a sensitive area?
Yeah, like obviously you will get an alert. I think it was interesting for our members anyways, because for years, I think we were driving carts, let's say going from our driving range through our parking lot where we're not asking them to go, and probably didn't read the 5 or 6 emails we sent regarding Tagmarshal being installed. So all of a sudden their cart sounded like it was going to explode. So they got the message pretty quick, which was great. And it really does help just warn groups that aren't necessarily familiar with the Golden Golf Club, like, hey, you're not supposed to be here, get back in position. And for the most part, I feel like those groups already know that. It's just a good reminder, like, hey, someone is observing where you're going. So it's been a big positive for us. And even if it's not the group themselves worried about the noises coming from the cart, it's loud enough that other groups will notify the golf shop team if needed.
Yeah, and I think like for us, it isn't as much the geofencing, but just also the trail for the carts, just to see maybe where they've been. And then because of the size of our property on the resort, we sometimes have groups that are staying down in the KOA campground that will take their cart back to their campsite and then decide to have a beverage or two or something before bringing the cart back. But we might need that cart or multiple carts. So if we're looking for cart 27 at night, we can see on the screen, okay, well, it's down in the campground. We'll just go get it, kind of thing. So all of that is super helpful. And then I also think too, with the reports, that you can actually see it's such a small percentage of actual delayers versus the people that are being delayed. So I think if you can catch those slow groups, it usually, it can really make a difference for everyone else, because it's generally such a small percentage that are actually causing the problems.
So you're spot on there. We talk about a lot of our courses might not necessarily always have pace problems, but everyone has flow problems from time to time. And it only takes one or two groups to stop that train on course for the day, and that damage is done. So once again, preemptively getting ahead of that. We do have a few questions that's coming through in the Q&A chat. I will address those at the end. So thank you for the patience to the people that have joined the call today. Just one other thing I want to touch on there. We're not going to go into all the data analytics because it can go quite granular. But obviously now with that T-sheet integration there, and this is to anyone on the panel, you obviously then also collect data on each one of the members or visitors to the course as well, and essentially building up player profiles. Now, obviously, each club uses this information at their own discretion. What are you looking at screen on? Can you just sort of run us through what you see on screen there now, Matt? For Phil Mickelman, who's currently played 14 rounds of golf as a new member.
Yeah, so Phil would probably need to have a chat here. As you can see down in the status, he'll look there first. He's a delayer most of the time, on pace a few times. So he might just not be aware of what our pace of play policy is, or he's just a chronic slow player or a chatty guy. I've done this year where I've noticed when certain people are paired with each other, that's where they really slow down. So I can take that analytics and have a quick chat off to the side from them saying, hey, just so you know, you're kind of creeping into the slowest player of the club type thing, and that's not where anybody wants to be. So it's easier to have that discussion with the analytics. Again, at the end of the year, one of my favorite things is just look at our average pace for the year, just to communicate that with our membership committee and our board. And based on that, we can kind of make recommendations of how many, how busy the T-axis needs to be, how many members we want to have for the next year, moving intervals from 10 minutes to 9 minutes potentially, how that affects things. And it's really interesting to see if when you go granular and changing it by a minute, how much that affects the actual pace of play, and you can see it. And so you can have that discussion instead of just saying, well, what if we change it to 9 minutes instead of 10? And you go, yeah, I think that will work, but I don't know what that'll do to pace of play. Well, here you can actually see the results quite quickly, and that's been a big benefit for us, and to educate our committees and our board for that.
And Graeme and Mike, I know you sort of blended between quite a large proportion of visitors and members. Is this one of those analytics tools that you guys would be looking at that much? Or are you just more concerned with the day-to-day sort of what's happening on course?
I know we certainly look at it. We're going to be doing a very deep dive this off season, actually, on a few of our members, both on the good side and also the bad side. We have some people I feel that, or some of our members that may think that they're constantly being delayed. So we'll be able to use this as a tool to show that maybe that's not the case in specific examples. And yeah, to Matt's point on the 10 and 9 minutes, just to go on to that, like the first year we got the report, we looked at our early times from 7 to 8 o'clock, and we actually added one tea time in there. So we're traditionally 10 minutes, and then we started our day with 8-minute intervals, then half an hour in went to 9. So we were able to gain one tea time in that first hour that we're open, which as demand has been so high, that those 4 players just certainly help getting a little bit more revenue through the door. And then also some of our members like to take advantage of that and just try and get out ahead of the busy day that's coming. But we certainly do look at this, probably not as much as Matt would at a private club, but there's certainly a handful of members that will be having discussions both ways, again, bad and good.
Yeah, and for us, just being a resort course, we're more day to day. Like we do have a small amount of members, but they're not really the ones causing problems or anything. So for us, it's more of a day to day thing.
Thanks very much, Mike. And as far as now, the team's actually taking on that technology, implementing that technology, using it on a day-on-day basis. What has been the response like, one, I suppose, from your teams? And if you can maybe touch on going from old habits to new habits and what that looks like in each one of your spaces, Graeme?
Yeah, our team is fully bought in. It didn't take long for that to happen either. A little bit initially, just the learning curve, which was over probably within a week or two. And then it's much easier. I think our staff enjoys, like, we're really focused on client experience, be it member and guest on the golf course. So if we can, and one of the biggest issues, like you saw on an earlier graph, is pace of play. So to avoid those issues following rounds, if we can use Tagmarshal as a system, as an entire team, it benefits both the client or member or guest and our team itself, because then once that player's done their round, they're not coming in to complain about a slow pace of play because we've dealt with the issue. So overall team buy-in was huge early on, and it remains very strong. Almost sometimes I have to kind of pull back a little bit, like, it's only 5 minutes, guys. Let's give them a hole or two before we go make an interaction. But yeah, no, it's been very positive that way.
And as far as in the past, in the previous setup, did you have a lot of volunteers on course? Have those hours sort of been reduced?
Yeah, so it would be volunteers and or a paid staff member, basically doing the classic drive 18 to 1 in reverse, and you'd see a pace of play issue on 14, let's say. You might stick around and try and see if that improves, but probably the person would just keep going. If it's a volunteer, often they'd just be looking for golf balls, having conversations with their friends, not very effective use of time. So the efficiency of implementing Tagmarshal has been huge, because now with that map that you see on there, we can see where the issues are, drive straight out to the issues, deal appropriately, and then come back and continue your work. So it's not just a person looping around the golf course, for no reason at all.
And Matt, as far as the staff that are using the system at your course now, are they looking on their computers or their laptops before they go out? And then when they head onto course, are they using a Ranger tablet or smartphone to see what's happening in case there are any other fires?
So yeah, when we first started implementing Tagmarshal, we had a starter available as well. So they would have the tablet at the first tee, and that's how they would assign the groups and also watch the screen. I will have it always on my desktop in the office as well when I'm working. Plus, it's available on my cell phone when I may not be, when I'm a bit more mobile, either on the course or at a different place or at home, if you can believe it. But this year we actually went without a first tee host, and so it was much more on the golf shop to do to assign the tags and whatnot. And so they keep the Tagmarshal on one of the point of sale screens at all times, just reviewing it, by the minute kind of thing.
And Mike, you mentioned previously that guys generally check in and have a look at the computer before they go out into course. And you're saying you currently using a TV screen to show your guests and members what's happening, of course, before they start their round. Could you elaborate a bit more?
Yeah, for sure. So we have ours up, like we have two kind of POS systems where people can check in for their round or pay for their round. And then we also have at our starter shack, we have our player's assistant or starter out there with it up, with the course map and kind of keeping an eye on things. But then we have a TV mounted up above where people actually are checking in. And so when people walk in, they can actually see, like, there's the TV mode for Tagmarshal that we have up, which also has the leaderboard. So we actually have that visible for all our guests to see, that one, it's a good map of the course. So people, if they have any questions and want to see the layout or anything, you can actually, it's a good map. But I think it also kind of sets expectations and lets people know that, we do have the GPSs on the carts and are watching and can see pace of play. So, I mean, we've had lots of people walk in and look at it and comment. So I think that's kind of a cool way of doing it too.
And this one's to the panel. I mean, obviously, historically, it was seen as very much a subjective conversation. What has been the feedback from the staff and operational team with regards to the conversation that used to happen on course and the conversation that's happening these days?
Yeah, and I think it definitely, you can't really kind of argue, when you started or if you started late, because people kind of use that as an excuse. And all of our players, assistants, and marshals, starters, they're all paid. So we've actually been able to cut down on kind of our paid marshal time because of Tagmarshal, because now we can just kind of keep an eye on things. And if there is an issue, we can send someone out there and you try to stay on top of it. And if you don't let things get too backed up, like I said earlier, it's a pretty small percentage of groups that are actually the delayer. So, and then the other thing too is to actually then we try to go talk to the groups behind them to let them know that we've tried to address the issue, and hopefully things will speed up, and try to use some of that time out there as a positive experience as well.
Matt, you predominantly members, and Graeme, a third of your golfers being members at your clubs. What are those sort of conversations gone like with your team?
Yeah, like this obviously doesn't eliminate slow play. There still are people that do it, but this does eliminate, I would say, 75 to 85% of the phone calls into the golf shop trying to tell you that there's somebody slow in front or behind or whatever on the golf course, and to come take care of it. The members here now trust that the staff is on top of things. We don't need somebody just aimlessly driving around on the golf course looking for a problem. We see the problem, we address the problem, we move on, and we monitor the problem after we address it. So the membership has really taken to appreciate the service, that it's not, they know we're watching, they know Big Brother's kind of watching the pace out there, and it's not an issue for them that they have to take time out of their day to call the golf shop to tell them there's a problem in here. So the trust factor has gone way up, and it's just been a great tool in our toolbox.
So, and that sort of, I suppose, leads us into our next sort of section that we've been talking a little bit how the team's taken on the technology, how they've adapted, how it's empowered them and given them that full oversight on course. But then most importantly, what has been the response from the players now? Because at the end of the day, that's why the system's in place, to improve their player or member experience. Graeme, what's been the feedback on your front, for one, from the interactions on course and then the interactions off course?
Yeah, similar to Matt and Mike, very positive thus far. And I think the one other key that I just add on to both their points is once you deal with, let's say, a delay or group and have that conversation, it also provides an opportunity following that, assuming they have improved things, to have a positive conversation. Just thank you very much for making those adjustments. We really appreciate it. Everyone does. And then that just leaves or gives a further enhancement to their overall experience, right? So it's not just, hey, you're slow, move it along. You're able to see, like, hey guys, congratulations, you just picked up 15 minutes. Like, you're actually ahead of pace. And without that interaction, they probably would have just continued to just be slow at the pace they were at. So yeah, overall, just a very positive opportunity to increase client experience.
Just touching on your point there, Graeme, I think what you're also seeing now is, as I say, perception has often been reality for a golfer. And these days you can actually have two groups that are quick on course and both on time and doing really well, except the group behind is playing even more quickly. And as I said, previously they would have thought, oh, the group ahead of me is out of position, or they're slowing me up. Where in actual fact, it's a complete opposite there now. And you guys can actually preemptively, seeing that happening ahead of time, you can go talk to the group ahead and say, look, guys, you've got a 3-ball playing behind you. They're playing really quickly. Would you mind if they played through on the 13th? And once again, you've got that information now to adjust accordingly. Mm-hmm. Graeme, as far as language, obviously very important on course. We just touched on it earlier. We're never going to say to a member, you are slow. How important is the language on course, and explain to groups that they are out of position and making those data-informed decisions?
Yeah, it's very important for sure. And we like to think we all have the same approach, and we really do try to. The one nice thing again with Tagmarshal is that the data kind of speaks for itself, if you will, even if the comments aren't necessarily what you're wanting to see. But yeah, for the most part, people won't argue when they can see the data in front of them that, hey, we are 15 minutes behind, because it shows exactly what happened. They remember on hole 4 how 4 of them hit it into the trees, and they all looked their 3 minutes for the golf ball when they probably could have just abandoned and moved forward, right? So yeah, overall, having the data in front of both the staff member dealing with the issue and the player themselves has just been a very positive thing.
And obviously now having all this data at your fingertips, right, obviously has a knock-on effect on the efficiency side of things. Matt, from your side, you obviously, when you first took on the system during the beginning of COVID, there was a much higher demand for golf. If my memory serves me correct, you said there was a 40% uptake or demand for further golf. How did this aid you in that department?
Like we previously mentioned, we went from about 25,500 rounds to 36,000 rounds overnight, like most of us did. Our members weren't used to having a facility that busy, and it was mostly member rounds, if you can remember back in COVID, where guest play was very limited. So very stressful time for golf professionals those 2 years, especially year one. What Tagmarshal allowed us to do was, once we got the data collected, which took about 2 weeks to find out the pinch points on the golf course. First of all, it just allowed us to establish a proper pace of play for the golf course and for each hole, and then we'd advertise that in the power carts for how many minutes each hole should take. But following that, we were able to really maximize, just like Graeme talked about, our efficiencies with our tee time intervals. And so as we needed some more space, we were able to squeeze some time in the mornings, leave it at 10 minutes where we saw a trend for slower play, which was typically between 1:30 and 3:30 in the afternoon, and then squeeze them back in the evenings, just to maximize the amount of volume we could get onto the golf course, which we were not used to having that issue. And since then, and also just member trust, I remember one of the first interactions we had, that typical member that calls and exaggerates quite a bit. I was able to go out there and show that individual that they were wrong, for one, and I have the analytics to show it. And that was the last time I ever heard from that person about slow play. So just a couple little things there that it was a really fun year to have it for. I really enjoyed having it for, and got everybody used to seeing it on their carts or whatnot.
Mike, you mentioned earlier, obviously you have the downloadable reporting that can be done daily, weekly, monthly, and you get your end of year reporting as well. But you saw it being quite helpful oversight wise when you have an issue with, sometimes there's no halfway house stopover and people deciding to rather do 18 holes than 9 holes. How are you managing that now?
Yeah, and that was actually one of the big factors in bringing on Tagmarshal a couple of years ago, is that when you tee off here on 1, you actually don't really come back till you're done on 18. So any of the 9-hole ones kind of finish down closer to the river, and it's a little bit of a drive back up, and the 10th tee is back there as well. So we're able to see, like, especially in the evenings, if people have, paid for 9 holes or only supposed to be doing 9 holes, and they continue on to 10 and keep going kind of thing, we can actually see that they've done that. And, if we need to go ask them to bring the carts back in and stuff like that, where before we couldn't actually visually see them, we would actually have to basically go search for them, or are they slow and they're still on 8, or are they on 13 now because they've played fast and they've kept going. So just now we can actually see exactly where the carts are.
And thanks, Mike. And Graeme, you have mentioned to me before that you looked at some of the individual hole times that was happening on the course, and you actually made a bit of an adjustment to your trees.
Yeah, we were surprised with a few of our holes that seem relatively easy, but actually were contributing to slower times. So our superintendent, both wanting to do this on his own accord and then also with some Tagmarshal information, kind of attacked at some brushing, like on our 14th hole. There's a number of spots where off the tee, if you get wayward, you're not going to find your golf ball. But this day and age, people still want to find that little white ball, no matter how deep it might be into the trees. So by able to thin out some of the underbrush in specific areas, we were able to provide a better experience for our players because they probably could find their golf ball. And really looking forward to having a full season of data as far as if some of those areas that were touched on do indeed improve pace of play and flow.
And obviously with the data in mind, we obviously are as a company are collecting this each year, and we have our top performers, and all three of this year have been gold partners in using the Tagmarshal system, not only from interactions, dashboard views, of which have been some of the best performing courses across the globe. Matt, you guys have been consistently an under 4-hour club, usually playing, I say, probably closer to 92% groups acceptably on time. You guys were a whole 3 seconds over your goal time this year, except I think you have an explanation for that.
Yeah, it's a great explanation. Like, one of our top values at the club is tee access, and this provides me the information that the experience at the club is suffering because of lack of tee access we've had potentially this year. We opened a brand new clubhouse this year, coming off of 2 years of COVID and construction. We just had a lot of guest play this year. So like our 2 years ago, I believe our average round time was about 3:53. And we were up over 93, 94%, 95% rounds on pace, which is ideal, is where we want to be. So this was interesting information that I could bring to the membership committee. As we evaluate our tee access, we will actually make adjustments to how many shares we have available or not available from year to year. And that's how we regulate our tee access. So showing them that the influx of guest play and potentially a few more members than needed has impacted our average round time by, compared to last year, 3 or 4 minutes. And now it's creeping over our goal time. So valuable information to have at the end of the year, just for planning for next year.
Thanks, Matt. So look, obviously at the end of the season now, you guys generally are in touch with one of our customer success team members, and they run you through end of season reporting. And a bit like anything, one looks to incrementally improve over time. Graeme and Mike, you obviously then also get your individual hold times for each of the courses when you're running at the course. And then we obviously can provide that recommendations if you're looking to fine tune or try to squeeze in a few more tee times around their course. Are there any considerations at the end of the season, trying to see which holes are playing quicker than expected and others slower, to find that ideal goal time for each one of those holes of the course, or possibly reducing the goal times for individual holes?
Go ahead, Graeme.
I was just going to say we did this pretty extensively at the end of the 2022 season. Fairly comfortable with where we're at currently. Again, I think we'll wait through half of next season, especially to see how the result of some of the brushing that was done, the cleaning up of some of the heavily wooded areas, what that does on impact, and probably revisit at the end of the 2024 season with respect to adjusting hole times, just to kind of have a little bit more data before we go making adjustments to individual hole times.
Yeah, and I think, like Graeme said too here, we adjusted our hole-by-hole goal times at the end of last year. So this year they were actually fairly close to the adjusted ones. So I don't know that we need to adjust any more hole-by-hole times at the moment. But as I mentioned earlier, we did kind of just adjust the zoning and geofencing for each hole. And then I think here it's probably more of the next step would probably be similar to what Graeme was talking about, adjusting, kind of changing actual holes or tee boxes to maybe speed up play a little bit there.
Hold on, Mike. Thank you. Before we move on to the Q&A side of things, because we've had quite a few questions coming through and obviously would like to get to as many of them as possible, are there any last thoughts on the feedback, whether it's from golfers, staff, operational side of things so far? For anyone in the panel, guys.
I think we've covered a lot of it. I think the feedback is golfers like to know that their experience is being monitored, and adjusted as time goes on. And so they have the trust in the operation that the experience is going to be a good one from day to day. It's a cool thing for them to show their guests or talk about with their guests, like at our club, this is how we do things. Heard that conversation many times as well. So it's just a trust factor that the operation is being efficient and providing a good experience.
Yeah, and we've had great success and love the system, and Stephen and everyone at Tagmarshal has been great to deal with, very open to ideas or changes, so very helpful there, very good support. So thank you guys.
Yeah, and I would also provide the same thanks. And I think for a small town club like ourselves, having this piece of technology has just really helped us become more efficient, which is a goal of kind of everything we do, and also just increase that client experience, because they know that an efficient, effective pace of play and flow monitoring is actually taking place. And should they have any questions, we have the actual data to back up what the responses might be, rather than just that gut feel or years of experience, right? It's a little bit of that, and then it's also the data. So overall, just been a very positive addition to our club.
Thanks, Graeme. So as I said, we've had a few, and you're probably going to know a few of these gentlemen and ladies' questions that are coming up on screen there now. The first question is from Dean Jackson, and what he's asking is, he's saying obviously they're more semi-private and a public course. How do you hand out the tags and cover them after an 18 holes, right? So generally what happens, as I said, it depends on what the protocol is at the club is. Matt, you said previously at Royal Mayfair you were handing them out at the starters block. Now you're handing them out at the pro shop, correct?
Our pro shop is now quite close to the first hole, so our pro shop will just meet one of the golfers. Our pro shop staff will just almost act like a meet one of the golfers before they tee off, hook it to the rickshaw or put it in their power cart. So we don't typically try to put it into the bag or hook it onto a bag. It's more on the tool they're using for transportation, because a few of them have been hooked on bags when there's a walking group, and we have a few tags in Saskatchewan and somewhere else in the world right now that we'll never recover, but we know where they are, but we just won't recover them. So the back shop staff or the golf service staff after golf, they'll collect all the tags and bring them back up to the golf shop for charging or for reuse that day.
Yeah, and for our side of things, all of our power carts do have the tags within them, and then we also have 10 walking tags that we can do the same thing Matt was speaking to. What we found, though, for the most part, is it's very rare at our golf course anyways to have a group of 4 walkers. So even if there's one cart in the group, we don't hand out a walking tag, just because we are still able to get the information we want as long as there's one power cart in each group. So, and then even on those groups that, let's say there were 4 walkers and our team maybe forgot or didn't get out a walking tag for them, because each group is tracked, just with the tee sheet integration, you can see, let's say the 10 o'clock groups on hole 3 green, the 10-10 groups on 3 fairway, and the 10-20 groups just getting off 2 green kind of thing. So there's a gap there, but you know what that gap should be, right?
Correct. And look, if you want to call it the insurance or the blocker from having those tags go off course, there's a lot of courses also have a drop box behind the 18th, particularly in the semi-private and public space. And then likewise, you can set up a geofence behind that drop box location. So in the event that someone does walk past it, the guys in the pro shop will be sent a text message or phone call telling them that their group has forgotten to drop it off, and they can escalate it to a phone call if they walk into the parking lot and they're about to climb into their car. Worst case scenario that happened at Waterville Golf Links in Ireland, a millionaire jumped into a helicopter, was in Manhattan the next day, and you could see via the tee sheet and where the tag location was, and that was queried back a day or two later. So retention rates are around the 98-99% mark. Next question is from Tom Monaghan, British Columbia. Graeme and Mike, do you have the cart installed tags or the 8-inch screens? And how does your maintenance and cleaning affect the tags?
Yeah, and I think it sounds like Golden and us have the same tags in the carts. We do not have the screens, but where they are with the batteries under the seat of the carts, we've had zero issues with just our normal cart cleaning. I don't know, Graeme, if you've had any other...
Same thing. Yeah, we haven't had any issues with respect to cleaning or tags becoming not functioning.
And his lead-on question or part B was, and do you combine the tag, the cart installed tag with the mobile tag? So, Mike, you don't. Graeme, you do, correct?
Combine the tag with the mobile tag?
Yeah, like
as far as the walker tag?
Correct.
Yeah, typically, if we have one power cart going out in the group, we don't also provide a handheld tag. We just use the power cart data.
Yeah, and we're pretty much the same as Golden there with Graeme. Like, we have 4 of the walking tags, but we very rarely use them for the same reason. Most groups end up having a cart, and we do have there's one specific group of members that there's 4 of them that always play together and always walk, and we know who they are, and we know that they're out there, and it'll kind of show a bit of a gap, but really nothing that ever causes any issues.
Thanks for that, Mike. Matt, I might take us one to you. We are an old school members pen and paper club. How much time does the system save you?
In what respect, I guess, is the question.
We weren't given too much context there. I'm assuming it's time around operational time. It sounds like they were using pen and paper to track groups going around course.
Okay. Yeah, we used to have, when I started here, we used to actually have a course ambassador or even a starter up till last year. We've eliminated that position altogether, as we can monitor everything right from the golf shop. So it saves an enormous amount of time and efficiency to just deal with actual problems instead of perceived problems. It allows us to check in with what's going on day to day. And it's so little work to use this software that it's just become routine now.
Thanks for that, Matt. There are a couple of technical questions here, and then I think there are a couple that you guys to answer. I might just jump in for 1 and 2. Should Tagmarshal be disconnected from the cart batteries for winter storage? For the cart installed tags, no. And likewise for the 8-inch screens, they don't require any winter storage, so they can stay connected. This question is for Graeme. You talked about carts making a loud noise when they're off limits or in the parking lot. Is this a Tagmarshal feature?
Yes, it's part of the geofencing feature.
So what Graham's talking about is when a cart enters a restricted area, the reverse sign of the golf cart will continue to go off until that player has exited that area. At the same time, the staff member sent a text message telling them that they've broken that geofenced area. And then likewise, that geofence breach will be logged in their player's track map. So if you can't talk to them from, say, hole 7 to 9, but can talk to them on the 11th, that conversation that can then be had. Victor, does the system work for a shotgun start or crossover starts? Yes, it does. How many tags are you using? Do they need charging daily? Royal Mayfair, they have 40 tags. Some tags go down to a minimum of 36, but essentially as the first one comes in from the morning players, it goes back out into the field. So you're covered on that front. Do they need charging daily? Best practice recommendation, you charge them in the evenings overnight, as they last a full day's play and sometimes can actually, in fact, last a couple of days play, but we recommend that you charge them overnight. I don't know if you've dealt with this, Graeme or Michael. I know how we do deal with it. How do you handle geofencing with someone who has a blue flag?
Yeah, for us, Mike, sorry, I'll jump in. Our geofencing is more places we really don't want to go. We don't have it where the cart signs are in front of the greens, something we've discussed, however. But that being said, if we do go down that route, you are able to change the category of each tag. And I don't have it in front of me, but there's a number of different things. There's course Marshall, maybe Stephen, you can speak to what the different options are, but you can basically override the system. So one of the tags can go basically wherever you want or have limited access.
That's spot on, Graeme. That's how it works. If someone does have a blue flag, you can take it off. There'll be no geofencing alert. Simon Jones, for you, Mike, can you talk a little bit about your light speed integration and how that works?
Yeah, and it sounds like very similar to probably what Matt has with Jonas. So basically, in Tagmarshal, there's a tee sheet. So it'll show all our tee times that pulls from Lightspeed. We do 10-minute tee times. It'll have it all in there. It'll have the names of the players. And then you can assign the tags or the carts to each player group. It sounds like maybe there's a new kind of change or feature coming next year, so which will be helpful. Hopefully that answers your question, Simon.
That sounds like you're on the money there. I think we've got about 3 or 4 minutes left now, and obviously trying to stay on pace and be poignant and stay on track. A couple of thank yous coming in here and there. Anonymous attendee says, did tee times costs go up to supplement Tagmarshal costs at your course? I know some of our partner courses, let's say they've taken on the cart install, sorry, the 8-inch screens, and they're very much concerned about the return on investment. Sometimes they do charge a premium. It could be $5 extra round of golf, and they find that that's paying the system back 10 overs. Others like to offset the cost with the advertising module. And then likewise, others like to optimize their tee sheet by actually adding in additional tee times, but without putting the course under the pressure, right? So the ROI side of things can range from $18,000 to Erin Hills that does an extra $140,000 a year just in tee time optimization side of things. I don't think you guys have done that, Graeme or Mike. Added an additional cost for having the system in place.
No, not directly. Not directly for the Tagmarshal system itself. I think the one thing I'd say is, if you're using the technology correctly, you can actually identify a lot easier potential revenue increases, be it like we did at adding 1 extra tee time to start our day. And then just, again, overall client experience, they're having a better experience. So should that be the case, they're more likely to return and play again.
Yeah, and I would just kind of second what Graeme just said with the player's experience. And then for us, we definitely cut back on the amount of hours we're paying a marshal as well. So that is just helping with costs. I think if we went to more of an 8-inch screen or something along those lines where we're adding a bit more to their experience, then that would probably be something we would talk about as well.
So we have 2 minutes left, and I suppose on a personal note before we wrap up, and I'll get your guys' last thoughts now, I just wanted to thank the panel today for one your time and your valuable inputs and experience in using Tagmarshal. Thank you very much. And to maybe just give you each 30 or 40 seconds on your sort of last thoughts for the day. Matt?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me to join this panel. Like I said, we joined Tagmarshal 3 or 4 years ago. It is growing with the game as well. It's very user friendly, like I said, but every year there's more and more information provided. Like Graeme teased, Michael teased, there's something coming on with the tee sheet. I don't think you have to put the tag number in anymore. I think it will just automatically read it as it goes through the geofence on the first hole. So every year there's little tweaks to help it become more and more efficient, and it's a valuable resource. A lot of people ask right away, of course, and I'm sure a lot of you on this call are asking, well, how much does this cost? It's at first you're going, oh, that seems like quite a bit, but it's actually not, it's not quite a bit. We absorb that into operations and reduce it into staffing, and then the experience is just so much better. So I would recommend to anybody that either has a club that is interested in pace to play and wants answers all the time, or just ones that have problems with it. And it's just a great tool to use in kind of 21st century.
Thank you, Graeme. Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered most of it. Yeah, and I think, like Matt just said, you guys are pretty good about making little adjustments and improvements to things, and are always good to deal with if we have any questions. So yeah, I don't really have a whole lot more to add.
Fantastic. Before we jump to you there, Graeme, Matt just touched on it briefly there, and Mike, I think you were talking about it yesterday. What Matt was talking about is our auto sign, one of our new features that's coming out with Tagmarshal 4.0. Basically how it works is it's a new release of our software, and obviously a bit like yourselves trying to improve incrementally each year. Tagmarshal the whole time is looking to produce new features, improve incrementally, and taking on the feedback of particularly our clients and partnered courses. And then we look to put that in our development pipeline, and that's how these sort of new features come about, just like our new Caddy feature module that's being released in February of this year, as well as our Tagmarshal app. Graeme, your last thoughts to wrap things up for this morning?
Yeah, no, just appreciate the invite to be on this panel. Really enjoy talking about Tagmarshal because it's been such a benefit to our club. Happy to discuss with anybody who's viewing this or anyone moving forward, honestly, how it's impacted our business on a separate call. So feel free to reach out should you have any questions. And yeah, it's going to continue to be a big part of our operation and our continued strive to improve our client experience on a daily basis.
Thanks, Graeme. And once again, a big thank you to Matt, Graeme, and Mike. I'll repeat that twice.
And if I may, Stephen, sorry. I just want to thank, as a golf professional and a PGA of Canada member, PGA of Alberta member, I'd like just to thank Tagmarshal for their support in Canada, especially with our zones and our associations to promote and grow the game here. So appreciate the support you've shown us in our zone and now BC, and look forward to seeing that support.
Thanks very much, Matt. Very proud of you. Okay, guys. Well, look, thanks very much to everyone for attending today, and those that did jump on late, a recording will be sent to you. And thank you very much for your time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.